The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Saturday, November 16th. I am back in Puerto Rico for a very short period of time. But this coming week, we're going to have a show every single day until I fly out, and then who knows how many shows we're going to have. I know some of you are having a Yaron Brook Show withdrawal syndrome. I know Michael was complaining that, you know, he was suffering daily because there was no Yaron Brook Show. But I do what I can when I travel. It's hard, and even now, I basically just got home from a very long flight from Victoria to Brazil to Sao Paulo, Brazil to Miami to Puerto Rico overnight. So I'm a little, it's not quite jet lag because time zones didn't change that much. It's more the day after you sleep on an airplane, whatever that is. Tired, and weak is probably the best description of it. Anyway, here we are. There's a lot to talk about. The show today will be fairly short, I think, just because I'm tired. But I did want to say a few things, and you know, particularly given that I haven't been able to, over the last week, I haven't been able to do a lot of shows. I haven't had the opportunity to comment on the shit show that is the Trump nomination process and the Trump administration as it comes together in a big kumbaya. So I haven't had a chance to comment on it, although I've been dying to, because it's there's so much juice here. There's so much to say. But anyway, first an observation, an observation, and that is that I forgot what it was like when Trump was president, and for a period, I guess, before and after, where you couldn't say anything, literally anything, critical of Trump without getting this avalanche, this cascade of he's playing. You know, you just don't get it. TDS. You're jealous of him. You're envious of Trump. What else? 3D chess, 5D chess, 7D chess. You know, all of this stuff. Just the mindlessness. I coined it at the time, right? Mindless Trump syndrome. And I'm resurrecting it. He's not even president. Mindless Trump syndrome. I mean, you can't even, like on Twitter, anything I post mildly critical of one of his appointments. Oh my God. It's like, not only that, but they accuse me, of course, of banning objectivism. Ayn Rand would love Trump. I don't know what I'm doing. It's just mind-boggling, this phenomenon. So the Trump cult is alive and well. It is all over Twitter. It is all over the comment section of the Yaron Brook Show. It is everywhere. It is stunning. Some of the people who participate in this cult, Scott and his ilk, call themselves objectivists. And yeah, I mean, again, you can be a supporter of Trump. You can have voted for Trump, but not be a part of this cult. Not have the incapability of criticizing anything he does. Not look at his appointment in defense secretary and say, something's off here. Something's a little wrong. I don't know. So it's going to be a long 4 years with Trump as president. And it's starting off with a bang, much bigger bang than his first, as I predicted, much bigger bang than his first time around. God help us, or whatever help us, you know, whatever can help us, help us. But this is going to be tough, guys. This is going to be difficult. And it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And who knows what this sets us up for in the future? Because I just don't know. We can talk about that at a different time. But basically, yeah, I mean, Trump is going to be worse than even I predicted. That's my new prediction. My new prediction is, however bad I thought Trump was going to be, he's going to be worse. And that's based on his nomination. So, but this is pretty cool. This is so one of the things, I'm hopeful for, and maybe some of you are hopeful for, is that some of these crazy people that he's nominated for cabinet level positions, the Senate will actually vote them down because the Senate has to approve them. So first, Trump has done the first major authoritarian thing. Again, he's not president yet, and he's already doing this. And he basically told the Senate, the leader of the Senate, which is now Thune, who just got selected, which is good because Trump supported Rick Scott, so the Senate showed a little bit of independence from Trump by going with Thune. But he basically told him, I want you to recess the Senate so I can make recess appointments that don't have to get through approval by the Senate. Now, can you believe that? Can you actually believe that? Akira says Scott usually says he's an Iron Man fan. Good. If Scott says he's an Iron Man fan, then good for Scott. That is good. I'm sure he's an Iron Man fan. But to the extent that he calls himself an objectivist, he's delusional or he's lying, one or the other. So the first thing Trump wants is for the Senate to recess itself so that he can appoint a bunch of people, recess appointment they're called, without getting Senate confirmation. I'd say that was authoritarian. And horrible. So we'll see if Thune does that. We'll see if the Senate plays along with his authoritarian tendency. But the second thing about the Senate is this. Will they challenge Trump? Do we have any reason to believe Republican senators are going to say no to some of his nominations? Now, a few will. You know, Susan Collins in Maine and whatever her name from Alaska. But will anybody else? Will any of them say no to RFK or to some of these other crazy appointments? This is Representative Niels, N-E-H-L-S, GOP. This is a direct quote from him. He's a Republican from Texas. This is from the House, not the Senate, but, this is the mentality. Quote, direct quote, this video. If Trump says tariffs work, tariffs work. Donald Trump is really never wrong. Think about it. He is never wrong. I mean, okay, this is the political party you chose, where the head of the political party is literally never wrong. Certainly will never admit if he is wrong, but he's never wrong. Even I am sometimes wrong. Trump is constantly wrong. So truth is determined by Trump. This is the mentality of the modern Republican Party. The modern Republican Party. All right. So let's look at some of these nominees, and I'll just give you my general assessment of some of them. I don't know if we'll get all of them, but some of the more striking ones. But let me make one point overall, generally. Trump is appointing people based on one criteria and basically one criteria only. And that is loyalty to Trump. People who have gone on television and defended him, people who defended him in the House or in the Senate, representatives or congressmen or media commentators who went out there and claimed that he won the 2020 election and supported his big lie, they are the ones getting nominations. if they kissed the ring and bent the knee and groveled before him, they're getting juicy positions. Now, generally, they have to be aligned in some vague sense with his positions, but of course, he has no real positions. So that's not the main thing. So one is they have to be loyal. And supposedly, now who knows if this is true, but supposedly, he is making these decisions at the spur of the moment. And the primary criteria is looking at their appearances on TV and to see how aggressively they're supporting his talking points or supporting him personally. So some of these people, for a variety of reasons, some of these people might be good. There's at least one really good appointment. I think only one so far. Really good appointment. And that's Doug Burgum for Interior Secretary, who's responsible for a lot of energy issues. And Doug Burgum, as the governor of North Dakota, has a lot of experience with energy issues. As the governor of North Dakota, is very pro-energy, very pro opening up land to drilling. I mean, North Dakota is where the fracking revolution began, and where the initial frackers really learned how to do it and what to do and everything. So Doug Burgum, I think, is an excellent pick. We'll see who he chooses for energy, but generally, I suspect that these are going to be good picks. Now, I don't have opinions about some of these people because I don't really know them that well. Some of them I have strong opinions because I know them all too well, or I know about them all too well. Loyalty, ability to appear loyal and strong and assertive in the media. And three, in some of these cases, or put it this way, let me not be flippant completely about this. The one thing that I don't think is a criteria for any of these selections, ultimately, is, ability, qualifications, experience, knowledge. That seems to have no relevance, absolutely no relevance to what Trump is doing. Now some of these are some of them are really, really, really bad. There are a couple that are good. And then there are a few that are okay. I mean, they're not great, but they're within the realm of, you could see that happening, even though I'm not going to like them for a variety of reasons, which I will articulate. They are, this is what a Trump presidency would mean. So not surprising, not shocking, not upsetting, but just okay. Just conventional, but not okay, right? God, I want to say one more thing. I'd say the two winners so far, or appear to be, is the energy sector. We expected that, and Israel, and we kind of expected that. So basically, everybody's appointed so far is a huge pro-Israel supporter. So in that sense, Israel is winning, and the energy sector is winning, and the energy sector crucial. So thumbs up to all the appointees, to the extent that we get a great free energy sector. That is fantastic. And I know a lot of the people, I think people like Alex Epstein, who were very happy to see Doug Burgum get the position he got. I don't think we've got an energy secretary yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that turns out to be somebody good as well. We will see, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe Alex. Maybe they'll appoint Alex. All right, let's start with national security. And this is where Israel has fared very, very well. I'm not sure America has, but Israel has fared very, very well. Why do people think I'm going to come around? Come around to what, Bob? Come around to what? I mean, what in reality has changed that would cause me to change my attitude towards this statist moron called Donald Trump? What in reality has changed? His appointments have confirmed everything bad I've ever said about Trump. And we'll get to RFK in a minute. I mean, that is quite something. RFK, HHS, and all these people supporting it. We're talking about the ultimate statist. The ultimate statist. His policies are beneficial, all beneficial. All. He's like, Bob here, I don't know who Bob is, but Bob is like that congressman. If Trump said it, it is true because Trump defines truth. If Trump thinks it, it is beneficial because Trump defines what is beneficial to the United States. Talk about cultish, just cultish tribal behavior. Stunning. Oh, my God. All right, let's start with Marco Rubio. So Marco Rubio is one of these appointments where you go, yeah, okay, I see it, I get it. But remember who Marco Rubio is. I mean, first, remember when Marco Rubio started attacking Trump after Trump attacked his father and Trump made fun of him and ridiculed him during the debates, and then Marco Rubio made some attempt to fight back and attack Trump and completely collapsed. And then once Trump became president, Marco Rubio basically went, kissed the ring, abandoned all of his Tea Party principles, whatever they were, abandoned his entire approach to America, to foreign policy, to domestic policy, everything that got him originally elected, everything that was necessarily reasonable about Marco Rubio went out the window, and he became just a Trump accolades, defending Trump at every opportunity, voting against impeaching Trump, just a Trump yes man, and of course has been that, including supporting Trump's claim for that he won the 2020 election and all that garbage. And he just got rewarded with Secretary of State. But what are Marco Rubio's actually views about foreign policy? He used to be affiliated with neocons, maybe. He used to be affiliated with a strong, hawkish, anti-Russian, strong in the Middle East perspective. But what is his philosophy today? Well, we know what it is because he has been very articulate about it. He has been very articulate about it. He has appeared on several occasions at the national conservative conferences, articulating his argument for national conservatism. This is not capitalism. This is not constitutionalism. This is not limited government America. This is his belief, together with a lot of Republicans, of the role of government in shaping society, using conservative principles through coercion, through force, through government regulation, through government control to shape society. National conservatives are super sympathetic to Orban in Hungary, ultimately sympathetic to Putin, and other authoritarians. The only ones they really seem to hate are China, and we'll get to China. I'll have to do a show on China later, but I think we are looking at administration that is going to move us closer and closer to war with China. If ever there was a threat for war with China, this administration might make it a reality. Maybe not in the next 4 years, but it move us towards there, towards something of that kind of caliber. That's just so mindlessly anti-China without really thinking it through. I'm also anti-China, but these are not thinkers. These are not strategizers. Marco Rubio is empty. He is basically given up on principles, on ideas, and everything else. All right, I just want to make a bet with Bob. All right, well, let's bet. I don't know. You name the number. I will bet you that 4 years from now, the EPA, the DOE, and all the other agencies supposedly are all going to be there, if not as big, then almost as big as they are today. This delusion that these things are going to happen. I mean, I think the appointment to the EPA is good. It'll weaken the EPA over the next 4 years, and that's great. So the EPA and the Interior Secretary are the two decent appointments. Nothing much. Okay, so Marco Rubio. Okay, but remember, national conservatism, this is him and J.D. Vance. This is an administration that, while Trump is not a national conservative because Trump is a nothing, these are going to be the people that are given the reins of the future, the people who are going to be in charge of the Republican Party as we move forward, the people who are going to be put in positions where they can then really be influential into the distant future. Marco Rubio is relatively young. J.D. Vance is relatively young. These are the national conservatives. So that's Secretary of State. Now let's look at the Defense Secretary. Defense Secretary is, I'm sure you all know this guy, but this guy is Pete Hegseth. I don't know how to pronounce it. Hegseth, something like that. Hegseth, whose qualifications for being Secretary of Defense, Defense Secretary. I just want to put in perspective, Defense Secretary. The Defense Department is the largest employer in the world, in the United States, maybe in the world. It employs close to 3 million people, active service personnel and civilians. It is responsible for the defense of the United States, responsible for one of the most, complex, strategies, when there is a strategy, incredible influence on the direction of technology into the future. I'm reading a really, really good book right now called Unit X. I'll do a review of it in a future show. Highly recommend it. Give you a sense of the Defense Department. This is this is bigger than running any large corporation in terms of the scope, the scale, the number of troops, the number of moving parts. It affects both foreign policy, but it also affects just how the department is run and how our military is run, what equipment it buys, who the generals are, and kind of how it positions itself, how the United States positions itself strategically in the world. There was probably no more important a position within the cabinet than Defense Secretary. It's also one of the few actual legitimate departments within the government. The government, one of the legitimate roles of government is defense. I can't even start to give you a sense of how complex the Defense Department is and the kind of decisions that it makes and the long-term nature of them. And what are Hegseth's qualifications? He was a soldier. He has fought. He was in Afghanistan. He was in Guantanamo Bay. He's been to Iraq as a National Guardsman. He's a very brave soldier. He's got some I forget not a Purple Heart, but he's got medals. So he's done well. And he is a. Other than that, so he's been a soldier. I've been a soldier. He's been a soldier, maybe longer than me. I think he got 2 bronze medals. Yeah, I think he got 2 bronze medals. He is never really been in the Pentagon, never really served in the Defense Department, never really led a significant number of troops. And of course, since 2014, and this is most important qualification for the job, he has been the co-host of Fox and Friends. I can't even say it with a straight face. Basically, this guy's career path was some military service. He ran some Veterans Affairs nonprofit. and a co-host of Fox and Friends. Huge supporter on Fox and Friends of Donald Trump's agenda in his first term. Huge supporter of Donald Trump's pathetic, mindless, ignorant courting of North Korea's brutal dictator. And those are his qualifications. He's a Trump acolyte. He's kissed the ring and bent the knee. He has no qualification for the Defense Department, the most important department in our government right now. Particularly, Bob says Trump is our savior. That's exactly the religious mentality people have. He's our savior. This is the cult. This is the cult. Mindless Trump syndrome. MTS. MTS. These people have MTS. Remember MTS? I'm coining it. I coined it, 6 years ago? We're gonna make much use of it. Much use of it. MTS, Mindless Trump syndrome, that the cult members and the tribalists embrace. How do you defend this guy? No qualifications. Hasn't been a general. Okay, generals. He hasn't been, somebody who's really a deep thinker in terms of military strategy or defense strategy or geopolitical strategy. He literally has never really written anything, done anything other than to mouth Trump stuff. Repeat and support Trump stuff. But beyond that, he has no qualifications. This, of all of them, now, granted, Trump has made some outrageous nominations and in many respects, worse nominations, people less qualified than this guy. But this is the most significant one because it has the most impact. And he has a huge amount of power. I want to emphasize, huge amount of power. A lot of what he will decide has nothing to do with, Congress will not be in a position to override. Senate will not be in a position to straighten him out. He can make decisions that are significant. Now, so it really is scary. Now, the one, I should say this. I mean, he does have one qualification. One thing that really, I think, particularly appealed to Trump about this guy, and on this he's right, but it's kind of, this is the only thing of worth. That is, he is a huge advocate of getting rid of woke in the military. He's also against women in combat. I'm not particularly fond of women in combat, but I think it's a done deal. They're already there. Nobody's going to kick them out. But he is really strong on getting rid of people of woke in the military. Good for him. That should not be that hard for a Secretary of Defense. But is that the number one priority? I mean, right now, China is investing in hypersonic missiles to destroy our aircraft carriers. They're investing heavily in AI, in drone swarms to overwhelm air defense systems in Taiwan. China's invested heavily in AI and robotics, and I mean, they dominate drones, right? Nobody produces drones as much as China. They know what they're doing. I mean, within the scale of what China could do. The United States, in some regards, is ahead, in some regards, is behind. But as this administration is intent on poking China, we better have a good China strategy. And we better have a military that technologically is up to speed, that's up to the task of confronting China. We better have, when they say peace through strength, we better have strength. And strength now is not about more artillery cannons or more tanks. Strength is about technology. What you need to head the Pentagon is somebody deeply committed to strategy, deeply committed to using technology and using the private sector, the American private sector, to advance technology so that the United States can keep its edge, because that's the way we're going to keep our edge, not by relying on what's called the military-industrial complex, but by relying on Silicon Valley. And then restructuring the entire way in which we view defense in order to deal with the Chinese threat, which is completely different than the threat posed in other theaters. Anyway, it's a whole other thing. This guy has no clue. He wants to get rid of woke. Cool. I'm all for that. Beyond that, he has no clue. Now, beyond that, there are some signs that he might be quite dangerous. And again, what is happening is people are being elevated to positions of great power by Trump, who are committed to a national conservative, maybe even Christian conservative agenda. Pete Hegseth famously has a tattoo on his bicep of, I can't pronounce this because it's in Latin, des volt, which is a Latin phrase meaning God wills it. Now, God wills it just sounds okay, so he's religious, he's a Christian, so what? They're all Christians, right? But it's more than that. This was the rallying cry for Christian crusaders in the Middle Ages. A rallying cry for Christian crusaders. Now, if you think the Crusades were a good thing, oh my God, do you need to read up history? Crusades were evil propositions that engaged in mass slaughter of peoples, mainly, not mainly, but to a large extent, Jews on the way, like in Germany and elsewhere, on the way to the Holy Land. And of course, was a stupid cause for which many Christians died for nothing. So he has this logo. God wills it. And of course, a crusade is what you could argue the Christian right is calling for today. This is not about Christianity. This is about a particular type of Christianity. Indeed, he has a book, American Crusade, Our Fight to Stay Free. I'm not sure he knows what freedom actually is. I doubt that. None of these people really do. He also has a big, you can see photos of this, a big tattoo on his chest. The tattoo on his chest is something called the Jerusalem Cross. Again, the Jerusalem Cross is a rallying call. A rallying call for Christian militancy, right? A rallying call for, again, a Christian cross. So this was a symbol of the crusade. And, the Christian right, the Christian conservatives, the Christian nationalists are using these symbols as Christian nationalism. So here we have a Secretary of Defense committed to Christian nationalism, a Secretary of State committed to national conservatives. Not both, I should say, because you know how pro-Israel I am. Both are very pro-Israel. As are the other people he has appointed. Let me just find some of the others. 1 second, we'll get to that. That one's not so much. I mean, Elise Stefanik, who is now the UN ambassador. I'm not particularly impressed by her, but again, she has kissed the ring. She is a Trump acolyte. She's a key Trump ally from his first administration, but she has no experience in foreign policy or national security. But she's pro-Israel, no question about that. And then you've got his appointment for national security advisor, Michael Waltz, a Florida congressman. That's another characteristic of his appointments. They tend to be from the House. They tend to be Republicans from the House. Again, no sector expertise, again, with a few exceptions. One governor so far that I can take. And then either they're from the House or just people who are unbelievably committed to him. Anyway, Marco Waltz is now the National Security Advisor. Again, a massive hawk on China, but also a massive hawk on Iran. So in a sense that he's anti-Iran, that is great. Again, good for Israel. Had multiple tours, huge opponent of Biden, huge supporter of Trump. And does he have a coherent, clear vision of American security moving forward? The other thing about all these foreign policy nominations is they're all pretty friendly to Russia. They're all pretty friendly to Russia. Which should scare you all. Which should scare you. So, national security, basically, they're all, and of course, Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. God, help us. Another unbelievably pro-Israel. But this is the problem with these people. And this is particularly true of Mike Huckabee, but it's true of all of these. If support of Israel becomes associated with, linked with Christian conservatives, national conservatives, Mike Huckabee evangelicals. Mike Huckabee is a nutty, not even a nutty evangelical. Completely kooky, completely nuts. If the support for Israel gets linked in people's minds to that, then will support of Israel survive after this administration is long gone? And if this administration fails, I don't know why it would fail given the high quality of these nominees, but if this administration fails, then one day we might get Democrats back. Will Democrats ever be pro-Israel again? I think the Democrats are going to learn the lesson and kick out the far left. Maybe. We'll see. Who knows? But pro-Israel? Probably not. Not once Israel gets associated in everybody's minds as being affiliated with the crazy left. Oh, and then, of course, how did I miss this? The Director of National Intelligence. Director of National Intelligence. This is a new office created after 9/11 that is supposed to coordinate all the intelligence agencies and integrate all the information from the national intelligence agencies, because clearly 9/11 was a failure of integration. It was, of communication and integration. So this office was created in order to solve that problem. It's been given to a woman with, I don't know. I don't want to insult the intelligence because I don't know how smart she is, but she's kooky, nutty. Tulsi Gabbard. Congresswoman, again, former congresswoman from Hawaii, a lifelong Democrat, we should add, and a member of the House of Representatives as a Democrat, but somebody who supported Trump. And Trump even considered her for a little while maybe as a VP. So she got a juicy appointment. We're talking about a woman who flew to Syria to meet with Assad during the Syrian civil war. Assad, an enemy of the United States. Assad, a brutal dictator. Assad, a butcher of his own people. Assad, affiliated with Iran. She supported Assad. And she is a huge fan, or at least seems to be, a fan of Vladimir Putin, of Russia, generally on Russia's side. And, not an accident, I think, that Assad was supported by Putin, and really the only international support the Syrian regime got was from Russia and Putin. She is now the Director of National Intelligence. Put aside intelligence, whether she has any or not. This is a woman who I think is in at least ideologically in league with the enemy. A flake. And very dangerous. Very dangerous. I don't know. I mean, how can anybody take seriously Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence? And what that means for the future of this country and where we're heading and what our enemies think of us. Robert says, Tulsi Gabbard condemned Trump for assassinating Soleimani. There you go. She condemned Trump for assassinating Soleimani. She's friendly to the Iranians. So she's the one exception of the team. I'm not sure how pro-Israel she is. But she's pro-peace. She's pro-negotiations. She would love to be sent as the Director of National Intelligence to meet with the brutal dictator of Korea, the brutal dictator of Russia, the brutal dictator of Iran, the brutal brutal dictator of Iran. That's Elon Musk's job. Reports are that he's already met with their representative in the UN in New York the other day. So Elon is going to do the negotiating with Iran. Tulsi is going to do all the other dictators. This is not good. John Ratcliffe, CIA director, probably okay. He was Director of National Intelligence during Trump's first term. I think far more qualified than Tulsi Gabbard. He was a Republican congressman from Texas. But again, everybody's a congressman. Everybody's a congressman here. Or a Fox host. Or a Fox host. Okay. EPA administrator, probably okay. I mean, it's a guy who hates the EPA and he wants to dismantle stuff and he wants to do away with certain regulations. Great. Again, you can't really do any of that without legislation. We'll talk a lot more about that as we move forward. Let's see. At least, okay. All right, let's... yeah, I mean, we've got this Thomas Homan who's going to be in charge of deportation. I mean, the other thing that has become clear over the last, I think, week, 10 days, that Trump is serious about everything he promised. He intends to follow through. Deportations are going to happen. Scale, hard to tell, but he appointed Thomas Homan as border czar, and this guy's serious. This guy, he worked for Trump in the first administration. He's going to get it done. I don't know how you stop it. Maybe the Supreme Court can. But other than that, they are going to try to do this. Deport 15 million people. That should have no impact on the spirit or the economy, the status of this country. None whatsoever. So we've got the border czar. We've got Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota. So we got the Dakotas are pretty covered here in the administration. She is, what do you call it, Homeland Security Secretary. So she'll be literally in charge of border security and the deportation. So, we'll see. I'm not sure how much her heart is in it. But this other guy, this Holman guy, he's committed. He wants them gone. He's the real thing. Of course, you've also got Stephen Miller, who's been around Trump since 2015. This guy is a really, really nasty piece of shit. I mean, this guy's really bad. He's really awful on immigration. He's a little racist and just awful. He's a deputy chief of staff. He'll be in the background coordinating all of the immigration-related stuff between Trump, Congress, and the different departments of government that are going to be responsible to try to do the deportation. So, this is going to happen. And it's going to be one of America's great tragedies in American history, this deportation. And then another thing that's going to happen are tariffs. I mean, Trump is committed to them. And he's basically going to appoint a Treasury Secretary committed to tariffs. I mean, there's a lot of jockeying right now for the Treasury position. And the jockeying for it. But the criteria is you know, are they gonna? How much do they kiss his ass? You know, and how much do they commit themselves to tariffs? We're gonna get tariffs. We're gonna get deportation. He really, you know, he's sticking with this. He's not wavering. All right. Let me say something about Musk and Ramaswamy, and then we'll go to his best pick of the week, which is RFK. Trump and Ramaswamy are now in charge of a government efficiency department, which is outside of government, but will make recommendations to the government about shrinking. You know, this is, they have to make the recommendations by July 4th, 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And those recommendations will not be binding or anything like that. I mean, this is, of all of them, this is the biggest joke, in a sense. Because here's at least Elon, here's a man with immense talent, a real genius, one of the most important entrepreneurs, certainly of the 21st century, and a real mind. And he's been given a mission that he has no qualifications to do, and which he has no clue about. And you can see that he has no clue about just by the way we've seen. Ramaswamy is just, I don't know, he's just a Trump acolyte. I mean, he was a successful entrepreneur. I give him credit for that. But his dog and pony show that he did during the primaries was pathetic. His attempt at being MAGA, but then dribbling in a little bit of free market in there was completely unconvincing. But Elon Musk has no standard by which to evaluate which department should stay and which department should go. But that's not even the mandate. It's to make it more efficient. I've talked about this on previous shows. Make what more efficient? Government more efficient? Who wants that? And government doing the things that it shouldn't do that are unconstitutional more efficient? None of the recommendations can be passed by presidential decree. If you really want to cut spending, you have to go through Congress. Congress is going to cut spending? Really? I mean, there have been many, many commissions over the last 40 years which have recommended deep cuts or ways in which the government can shrink, stop spending, and stop accumulating debt. How many of them have been successful? Zero. Why? Because Congress is not interested. It doesn't buy them votes. And indeed, the American people aren't interested. The American people don't want government to shrink. And what are the biggest areas of spending in the federal government? What are the biggest areas of spending? Social Security, Medicare, interest on the debt, and defense. Now, Trump has promised not to touch Social Security and not to touch Medicare. So the two biggest parts of government spending cannot be touched. The third is interest payment on the debt. By the way, interest payment on the debt is projected to be bigger within a couple of years, I think, than Social Security or Medicare. So you can't touch old people. You can't touch entitlements to the middle class, which is what Social Security and Medicare is. So what then? Can you cut interest on the debt? Well, no. Not unless you artificially reduce interest rates. You could do that, but nobody would buy your debt. And you would probably create inflation and lots of other distortions and all kinds of things in the economy. And indeed, the 10-year, if you look at the 10-year interest rate right now, it's up since the election by quite a bit. It's back to like 4.4 something percent. So interest rates are going the wrong direction for this to work. So then you've got defense. Now, arguably, you could cut some defense spending. But given the national security team he's put together, Trump is not intending to cut defense spending. They're intending to set ourselves up for war with China, which will require increased defense spending. You can cut waste and fraud in all of these, well, exception of interest on payment on the debt, but that's peanuts. So the four biggest areas of government spending, Musk and Ramaswamy cannot touch. They can't have any impact on them. They're left with the crumbs. Now, I hope they get rid of those crumbs, because if they can get rid of those, well, they won't be able to do a huge amount for the deficit. They'll be able to, maybe we could get rid of the administrative state, the regulatory state. But do they want that? Is that part of their agenda? Do they really believe in that? And will Congress ever follow through? Does Trump believe in it? Do the other people around Trump believe in it? I mean, we're going to spend gazillions of dollars on protecting our southern border and on deporting 15 million people. That's expensive. That's not going to be cheap. Where's this money going to come from? What are they going to cut? What are they going to save? Where? From whom? So what a waste of Elon Musk's talent. How sad it is that the premier modern American businessman is sucked into a job he cannot do and he's not qualified to do. He should go back to business where he can do amazing things. The only way to grow the economy is to cut government spending. This is the only thing that you need to do. You got to cut government spending. The bigger every dollar spent by the government is a dollar the private sector doesn't have. But more than that, every dollar spent by the government is being spent to control you in one way or the other. You cannot shrink the power of government without shrinking government spending. Can't do it. And, Publius says U.S. debt is now $36 trillion. It's going to accelerate under Trump. And that does not include the unfunded liabilities, which if you include those, it's well over $100 trillion. And you can't touch those because the unfunded liabilities, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And again, Elon Musk and Ramaswamy are not allowed to touch those because Trump promised. So it's just, everybody's excited, oh, Elon Musk, but then think through, and this is what we do on the Yaron Brook Show, we actually think through these issues. You actually think about what can be done. The other aspect of this is Donald Trump has no interest in weakening government. He has interest in keeping government strong, but to pursue his agenda items, not other people's. And here's a great example. Robert F. Kennedy is going to be nominated to head the Health and Human Services Department. All right, so we're taking a conspiracy theory, anti-science, complete whack job. I mean, a guy who's literally not completely there. A worm ate his brain. He says so himself. And if you listen to him long enough, you believe him. Who has just this awful character if you read up about his history. But of course, we don't care about character in America anymore. That's funny, Yaron. What are you talking about, Yaron? Character? Character doesn't matter. Even us subjectivists, we don't believe in character anymore. Tell with character. All that matters are results. Character doesn't matter. So here's Robert F. Kennedy, a statist, the ultimate in statism, who wants to regulate what we eat, regulate what drug companies can do, regulate every aspect of our health. And he is now given power by Trump that I don't think he ever imagined he would have in his entire life. Here's a man who could be responsible for the deaths of millions, is already responsible for the deaths of people in other countries because of his anti-vaccine suggestions and rhetorics. And, just asks people from Samoa, right? His anti-vaccine recommendations killed over 80 people, most of them young children. This was a epidemic in 2019. Measles spread rapidly across Samoa. And it was the anti-vax movement that he supported. People didn't get vaccinated for measles. 83 children died. 5,700 out of a population of 200,000 were infected. Hospitals were overrun. And ultimately stopped the outbreak. Guess what Samoa did? They launched a massive vaccination campaign. RFK personally went to lobby in Samoa on this issue in order to make sure they didn't get vaccinated. This guy's a monster. He's got, and he's a monster as a husband. He's a monster as a human being, and he's a monster when it comes to your health. He wants the government to tell farmers what pesticides they can and cannot use. He wants the government to tell you you should eat only organic. Now, you know what the last country to try to go all organic was? It was Sri Lanka, which did that, 2-3 years ago? And it completely collapsed their economy. Now, the United States is not Sri Lanka. It won't completely collapse our economy, but it will do a lot of harm. A lot of harm. And yet, RFK is committed to going all organic in farming. He wants to stop compensating drug companies through Medicaid for the drugs that save our lives. He is explicitly anti-vaccine. Childhood vaccines, other vaccines. I wonder what his position on vaccines against cancer. We know he hates mRNA vaccines. There goes that whole area of research. If you're a researcher in mRNA vaccines against cancer, forget it. So RFK is, he's ripped. He's got muscles. Therefore, he's a health expert. And we should take advice from him. I know a lot of people who are ripped who have no clue. RFK is ripped and has no clue. He's not ripped because he's eating organic food. The whole idea of organic food has been, of the value of organic over regular food, not to mention the cost, but it's been the health benefits have been shown to be minimal at best. There is no significant, widespread study to show that organic is better than non-organic. The problem in America is not artificial anything. The problem in America is not artificial food, whatever the hell that is, as if there's some deep separation between natural and artificial, as if we're not part of nature. There is no such thing as regular food. All there is, the problem of health in America has to do with how much people eat and the kind of food that they eat. They eat high-calorie, high-dense calorie carbohydrates that cause them to be hungry, so they eat more. Heavy in sugar. And if you replace all the corn syrup with sugar, you think things will get better? If you replace all the corn syrup with date juice, natural sugar from dates, you think people will suddenly lose weight? Organic date sugar. You got to be nuts. It's the quantity. You think pesticides are killing us? You're insane. Pesticides are making food available to us. RFK is anti-science. He has no scientific backing for what he stands for. RFK's ripped because he exercises a lot. And he's got the genes, so when you exercise, it manifests in big muscles. Good for him. I'm all for exercising. All of you should exercise as much as you can. I'm a huge proponent of exercise. I'm not a proponent of forcing you to exercise. I'm not a proponent of telling you what to eat and what not to eat. I mean, it used to be the Republicans would say, like, you remember when Mayor Bloomberg banned big soda drinks? And Republicans flipped out because he was the nanny state telling them what they couldn't drink. I mean, RFK is the nanny state on steroids, and Republicans are cheering him on. I mean, this is exactly the Trump mindless Trump syndrome, MTS. This is exactly the mindless Trump syndrome. If Trump thinks RFK is good, we all think RFK is good. We are statists now, committed 100%. Yeah, it's quite possible that RFK is also taking steroids. That would not be beyond the pale. Organic steroids, as Ian says, organic steroids, so they're good for you because they're organic. No pesticides used in growing the steroids he might be using. I'm not saying he's using it, but it's possible. Many people who are buff like that at his age do. So now we want a government that's going to ban fluoride. It's going to ban certain pesticides. It's going to ban food dyes. Zero scientific evidence that food dyes are bad for you. It's going to ban high fructose corn syrup, which is funny because let me tell you what's actually going to happen. Let's say he's approved by the Senate and let's say he goes after high fructose corn syrup. I predict that the day RFK goes after high fructose corn syrup, I give him 2 weeks and he's fired. Why is that? Why is it that the one thing you cannot go after, by the way, it's easy to solve the high fructose corn syrup issue if you want to replace it just with regular sugar. One simple thing you can do, and that is eliminate the import controls, the tariffs, the taxes on importation of sugar from the Caribbean, from Mexico, from South America. Sugar is cheaper than high fructose corn syrup. But in order to appease the corn farmers, maybe one of the top 5 lobby groups in all of Washington, particularly with Republicans, top 5. We have tariffs on sugar in order to protect the corn farmers. And you think the corn farmers are going to roll over because RFK bans high fructose corn syrup? And these are farmers, so this is the Midwest. This is red country. This is farm country. This is Iowa and Kansas and Nebraska. These people are going to fight tooth and nail against that. He won't survive that. It's not the sugar lobby. It's the corn syrup lobby. The corn syrup lobby is 100 times more powerful than the sugar lobby. A lot more of them. Of course, Rubio, Secretary of State, and Secretary of State from Florida, and he's a senator from Florida. And Florida, of course, is the sugar place. The American sugar farmers who make a fortune off of those tariffs are in Florida. But it's a corn lobby. The corn lobby. How can you have a free society? How can you have a free society when government is telling you and telling farmers what you can and cannot eat? Government should have no business telling you what's healthy or not, what's good for you or not. This is how we got into this problem with the stupid food pyramid that the government issues out. So, anyway. this is who we're going to have as God, as Health and Human Services head. I mean, his kind of propaganda, disinformation. This is the kind of environmentalist nonsense, the anti-pesticide stuff that RFK, that Republicans and objectivists and others used to rail against. And now we're supposed to support it? Well, I do not suffer from, mindless Trump syndrome. I cannot ever support RFK. I can't understand anybody who supports this guy. I really can't. I find it so offensive. The anti-pesticide alone should disqualify him. Not to mention, again, character, how he's lived his life. And, we all know our food and our food supply is not good. There's something really wrong with the way Americans eat. A lot of people have tried to fix that. Remember, I think Michelle Obama had a whole campaign about eating better and exercising. Republicans poo-pooed it, ridiculous, stupid, silly. Now, because it's Trump, they are excited about it. Solving the food problem in America is just a matter of getting people to change what they eat. Not because some of the stuff they eat is artificial, but because the kind of stuff that's artificial. Anyway, it's going to be really interesting to see how all this goes across. RFK, what he does to some of the more popular drugs out there, how people respond to this, what happens to corn syrup, and how Trump is a junk food addict. How is he going to respond to RFK? How long is that going to survive? The Trump RFK thing. I just don't see it. All right. I think that's enough. Anyway, it seems pretty clear to me, at least, that this might be the worst cabinet any president has ever assembled. I'm not enough of a historian to be able to tell. Again, Doug Burgum, good. I'm sure the energy secretary would be a good pick. But beyond that, good for Israel for now, short run, not sure long term. The rest of this is a disaster. Maybe Lee Zeldin in EPA is good. But beyond that, this is going to be as bad as I predicted, as bad as I expected, potentially worse. Potentially worse. Oh, we're going to ban seed oils. We're going to ban seed oils. Now, I'm not a big fan of seed oils. I kind of buy some of the arguments against seed oils. That's a choice you get to make. Government should get involved in that. Tell us what oils we can use and what we can't. Tell businesses what oils they can use and what they can't. And of course, one of the reasons seed oils are so popular is because they're cheap. They're cheap. Right? And you can't cook with olive oil because olive oil breaks down in high temperatures. So you have to find an alternative to olive oil to do cooking, maybe avocado oil and so on. But those are expensive. Those are expensive. Oh, now Bob wants me to go carnivore. Is this before I become a Christian or after I become a Christian, Bob? God. More mindlessness. Yeah. Just eat meat. Just eat meat. I'll take you guys on fitness and health. I'll take you guys on. All right. Ian says, I cook with olive oil all the time, just not high temperatures. Yeah, you have to be careful when you cook with olive oil. And there are other oils you can use. There are healthy oils you can use. But my point is, I don't want the government getting into this. This is not the job of government. Chandler's going to tell me about the amazing benefits of soy oil, of soybeans. And this is the thing. Yeah, I mean, we should all make our own decisions about our own health. I don't want the government telling me what I can and cannot eat, what I can and cannot cook with, what I can and cannot do. I did talk about the Secretary of Defense and his tattoos. I actually did. Yes, Jordan Peterson is a Christian carnivore. That is true. That is true. He's actually more of a carnivore than he is a Christian. He's maybe a Plato carnivore, Platonist carnivore Christian, something. I don't know. Anyway. All right, that's enough. Let's see. I want to remind you that Alex Epstein, who I believe is going to have enormous influence on energy policy in the Trump administration. Again, one good things that didn't come out of Trump. Alex is a sponsor of this show, in spite of everything I say about Trump. Shocking. Alex, I encourage you to follow Alex and encourage you to support Alex. I think Alex is the best think on energy issues, the best think on fossil fuels, climate change, environmentalism that you'll find out there. One of the great products that he produces are these talking points. A lot of politicians out there get Alex's talking points, and they use them. You too can use them in all those arguments you get into with people about climate change. And I mean, but it's not just for arguments. It'll make you a better thinker about climate change, about fossil fuels, about energy. You will just become a significantly better thinker about these issues. So follow Alex, support Alex, alexepstein.substack.com, alexepstein.substack.com. Now oh God, I missed this email. The other sponsor of the show, of course, is the Ayn Rand Institute. And you can find a lot of kind of the hottest things that are being promoted by the Institute by going to AynRand.org, start here. But right now, there's about to be what looks like a pretty cool webinar hosted by Don Watkins and Nikos. You got to love Don Watkins and Nikos in that combination. The webinar is going to be Guiltless Pleasures, How to Consume Like an Egoist. Or it could be Guiltless Pleasures, How to Consume Like RFK. How to get, anyway, God forbid. Anyway, Guiltless Pleasures, How to Consume Like an Egoist. It's going to be on Monday, December 2nd, so in 2 weeks, between 1 and 2 p.m. Eastern Time. They'll discuss the relationship between production and consumption, discuss the tax on consumerism, and how to get more joy out of spending. They will also announce some incredible discounts that the Ayn Rand Institute is offering on 2 of its most popular products. AynRand.org/start here. AynRand.org/start here for information about this exciting seminar with Don and Nikos, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. If nothing else, it's going to be fun and informative, because those 2 guys know a lot, and well, one of them is my co-author, so he has to know a lot, and and Nikos is going to be with me in Australia, and fun and informative, and they're both really fun to listen to. All right. Let's do this. We have got a lot of Super Chat questions. Thank you, guys. We're doing really well. We passed our goal for the first hour. We've chipped away at the goal for the second hour. So we're still about 160 short for the second hour. So welcome more questions, particularly if they're $20 or more, because we got a lot of $5 and $10 questions. And I do have to get dinner sometime tonight. I'm an hour ahead of you guys now, hour ahead of East Coast time, so it's later. Anyway, let's see. Oh, by the way, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have an AMA. Ask Me Anything. So you can save some questions for them as well, right? Cook says, oh, shucks, I missed the first hour. You can hear the first hour online. The show doesn't disappear into the ether. It's all there. You can hear it whenever you want. You can even hear the second hour again if you want. All right, Liam asks, do insecurities make it hard for objectivism to become real to most people? They respond positively to the novels, but the philosophy properly understood demands too much of them to really investigate and absorb. Yeah, I mean, I really do think that that's a lot of it. That is, there's definitely a psychological element about embracing objectivism. It requires you to have a certain level of willingness to explore the unknown and importantly, to explore the controversial. And then, and to do it in a first-handed kind of way. And to do that, I think you have to have a certain basic level of self-esteem. I think if by the time you read Ayn Rand, your self-esteem is already shot, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to embrace her ideas enough to really study them thoroughly, to really get into it. So I definitely think your psychological state matters. You have to be willing to be independent, for example, which means having enough confidence to think for yourself and to be willing to argue that my life is my responsibility, and I don't want the government to help me. I don't want the government to tell me. And you have to be confident in your own mind. So you have to have a level of confidence in yourself, in your mind, in your ability to know reality. In other words, you have to have a level of self-esteem. It's some level of self-esteem in order to do it. So it's definitely to become real, to be willing to open yourself up to that exploration. You have to have some kind of strong psychology. Exactly what that involves, I don't know. You'd have to ask a psychologist, and it's a great area of exploration. Why do some people respond so positively to objectivism and others don't? Right. See, Bob, who came on the chat earlier to defend Trump and his appointments and how wonderful he is, it turns out he's a Christian, which is not, or a supporter of a Christian society, which is so beautiful. It's so consistent, right? It's so consistent that Christianity, which teaches an epistemology of authoritarianism, is so open to an authority like Trump, so open to the mindless Trump syndrome. It is Christians who are leading this march because it is Christianity epistemologically that conditions people to join a tribe and to be the largest in this big cult following that Trump has, and to abandon your own independent thinking. So I didn't know. I thought he was an objectivist when he started out, but it's clear that he's not. He's all for faith in God. And that's it. Once you start with faith in God, authoritarianism follows. There's no America. There's no American founding. There's no Declaration of Independence. There's no Constitution if your starting point is faith in God. Luckily, our founding fathers didn't approach the world that way. They were men of the Enlightenment, mostly deists. All right, putting that aside because it's a whole other topic. By the way, I did this debate, which will be published, I think, between myself and a Catholic about whether Catholicism could be the basis for liberty or was it the Enlightenment. And I think you'll enjoy that when it's released. Paul says, I emailed you a letter in which Carl Barney criticized you regarding the Peacock issue. Did you get a chance to read it? Do you have any response? Yes, I read it. My response is, why do you care? My response is, it's completely baseless, and he doesn't even provide any evidence. He just makes a statement. But why is anybody reading Carl Barney? Why do you read Carl Barney? What value do you get from reading Carl Barney? There is literally, I believe, no value in it. And I wouldn't have done it unless you, Paul, had sent me the article. I regret having read it. I gained nothing, learned nothing, benefited nothing, and I will not respond. Beyond that, I'm not going to respond. And he'll probably do another piece where he makes specific accusations against me and Tal and Carla, and so be it. So be it. Maybe one day I'll respond, but yeah, it's going to be, I suspect, many years in the future, but I have no intention of telling you what I really think about Carl Barney and about what he's written about me and other people associated with the Ayn Rand Institute. All right, not your average algorithm. I'm listening to Peterson debate Dawkins. Here's a caricature of an M2. An indigestible mix of Nietzschean and St. Augustine. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Indigestible mix of Nietzschean and St. Augustine. To Peterson, reason is out. What matters is faith and will. He is planting the seeds of destruction. Yes, he's a Platonist ultimately. And in that sense, Augustine is right there, and his whole idea of suffering and everything like that. And he rejects science and he rejects reason. And nothing good is going to come from following his philosophy and his ideas. Colleen, saw this, quote, remember when Scar promised the hyenas a better life so he could gain power, but when they realized he betrayed and lied to them, they ate him in the Lion's King. Just something to be considered. Who's Scar here and who are the hyenas? Yeah, if Trump is Scar and the hyenas are, I don't know, MAGA or whoever, maybe they'll turn on him and eat him. I fear that is the happy ending we'd like to see. That they all eat themselves. But somehow I think that as part of this whole process, we are going to be the victims, and that it won't play out quite like that because of how mindless MAGA has become, how mindless the hyenas have become, so that the point where and this is what happens in authoritarianism, where the people lose the ability to be able to tell when they're being exploited, when something makes sense and when it doesn't make sense. Why did the chat just disconnect? Are we still on? Yeah, we're streaming. Everything seems to be fine. Not sure what's going on there. 1 second. Right, still there. Okay, cool. All right, let's see. Thanks, Colleen. Really appreciate the support. Bob says something fascinating. He writes, logic and reason still require axioms. That is absolutely true. Christianity is the beginning of wisdom. Isn't that amazing? So before Christianity, the Greeks had no wisdom. Romans had no wisdom. The Jews had no wisdom. Before Christianity, there was chaos. Isn't that amazing that somebody could hold that ahistoric, afactual, a view that completely rejects fact and history? All right. A friend of Aristotle says, something about Department of Government efficiency sends chills down my spine. How long will it take to drop the G from the acronym? DE? Department of Efficiency? Yeah, I mean, I agree that it should send chills down. I mean, the government is going to be efficiently determining what food you can eat and can't eat. The government will efficiently determine what food you can grow if you're a farmer. The government will efficiently. It's got a George Orwell kind of. There is no such thing. Yeah, absolutely. Stephen, we need a new comedy show similar to the 1980s British TV show, Yes, Minister, was said in the U.S. Yeah, I think we have it. It's called the Trump White House. In the first administration, it was that was the first season. We're getting a second season right now. Yes, president, we'll call it. Jennifer says, pesticides were invented for a reason. People don't study history. They don't read about how people used to literally starve to death because the bugs ate all the crops. Yeah, they literally don't get it. They literally don't get it. And how unbelievably valuable pesticides are being, the green revolution, which just saved the lives of tens of millions, that have made it so incredibly possible. Arthur, $100. Thank you, Arthur. He says, please comment on RFK's being in charge of the NIH, National Institute for Health. I mean, because the NIH is part of the Health and Human Services Department. I mean, yeah. I mean, this is part of the insanity. RFK, with no qualifications, none. He's an environmentalist lawyer who sued companies for stuff that caused no harm to people. RFK, this environmentalist lawyer, is now in charge of the budget, the allocation of funding for all medical research in the United States, or all government research, which is the dominant form of research, which means he is going to fund, he's going to determine the priorities for the NIH. He hates the pharmaceutical industry. He hates drugs generally. He thinks you should just cure yourself with organic vegetables. And yet, most of the research being done is done through the NIH. Now, that's not ideal. We'd like it to all to be private, but it's the reality. It's unimaginable the kind of harm that he is going to do. For example, I've talked about, his arguments against the COVID vaccine. So the argument is, of course, that it's mRNA, it's awful, it'll kill you, it's horrible, it's disastrous. Okay, so let's stop using mRNA vaccines. Well, there's incredible lines of research. I've talked about this on the show, of using mRNA vaccines against cancer. Out. You can't do that. I talked about the fact this woman who injected herself, her breast, her cancer cells in her breast with was it measles? I think it was the measles virus, but it's the virus that is used in the vaccine. That's out. Can't inject viruses. What about, we've talked about, what about this LGP? Is it LGP1? All these diet drugs that are showing massive benefits to heart disease, Alzheimer, cancer. I mean, just being GLP-1. What about that? Is that something that should be funded? No, it's artificial. It's not natural. And who knows? Who knows? There's a precautionary principle. Maybe it has really, really bad long-term effects. So should we fund research into GLP-1 and its benefits? And then, there's all Monsanto genetically engineered food. I mean, RFK is against that. Who the hell are you? Play God and engineer the food. I mean, I literally cannot think of anybody worse to run this department. Give it to AOC, it would be done better. And remember, he's a real anti-human, anti-life leftist. Always has been. Even the Kennedy clan, who are mainstream left, despise him. But think about all the research that goes through the NIH that will now potentially be scrapped because it doesn't fit into the pseudo-scientific views of RFK. Think about the labs that might have to be shut down. I wonder what RFK thinks about CRISPR, the gene editing technology, which has the potential to revolutionize healthcare. I wonder if he's for or against. I mean, it's genetic engineering on humans, literally going in to your body and changing your genes on human. I mean, isn't he afraid of of the Frankenstein phenomena? He is going to have so many levers of influence in the FDA, what drugs get approved and what don't get approved, the CDC, about what the protocol is going to be when and if we have a pandemic, how to deal with it. No vaccines, of course, God forbid. The NIH, what research is and is not allowed to be done or funded. This will have massive impact on our lives and our prospects for living long lives. All right. Arthur, thank you. $100. Really, really appreciate that. Arthur's first super chat on one of our live streams. So thank you, Arthur. Very, very generous. I very much appreciate it. You guys should thank Arthur for getting us basically to our goal for the second hour. Andrew says RFK blames public health problems on corporate capture of federal agencies, another act of pro-capitalist Trump. Yes. Now, there is a problem, of course. There is a sense in which regulatory agencies are captured by industry, but that's because we have given these government agencies power over industry. Separation of state from science. Separation of state from economics. Does RFK advocate for either one of those? I thought those were the objectivist position on these things. Separation of state from science and separation of state from economics. That used to be the objectivist position. I'm pretty sure it still is. We got RFK, which is exact opposite. So he's the worst possible candidate, worst possible appointee when the Health and Human Services should be abolished. Keep basically just the CDC. Everything else should be abolished. He's going to make these agencies more interventionist, more powerful, more dictatorial. Michael, is the American political landscape no longer socialism versus capitalism, but socialism versus nationalism? Well, I don't know. Is the left socialist? I think the American political system is between two different approaches to fascism. A nationalist approach, a religious nationalist approach, and a secular woke approach. I don't think the left's socialist. They're fascist. They want to control business. They don't want the state to own the means of production. But I think we got two forms of fascism. One oriented towards woke, identitarian politics. And the other one, and maybe controlling certain aspects of the economy more. And the other one oriented towards nationalism and religion, wanting to control the markets in different realms, but still wanting to control. Two forms of fascism. That's, I think, the challenge. Thanks, Michael. And I hope you're happy I'm back. Michael was complaining that I hadn't done a show in a while. I'm Meerkat. I like most of his appointments, except P. Diddy, the Russian prostitute, and the brainworm. P.S. Gaza must be destroyed. I'm glad you like most of his appointments. I don't understand why you like most of his appointments. I mean, the Secretary of Defense alone should scare the bejesus out of you. But I hate most of his appointments, with the exception of the Interior Secretary and maybe the EPA, although I'm not sure. Neocon, Trump picking Rubio and Waltz was reasonable. Tulsi, RFK, and Gantz are wild. Oh, I didn't even do Gantz. I didn't do the Justice Department. All right, we'll do that in a future show. I didn't do Gantz. I mean, the Justice Department. The craziest, swammiest, most disgusting member of Congress, I think. maybe with the exception of the squad, but certainly on the right, the most disgusting member of Congress is now going to be head of the Justice Department. No, Tulsi's not the worst. Gantz is the worst. Justice Department. This slick, horrible, MAGA weasel. Oh, I mean, I just look at him and I feel sick. Frank, the big question. International dollar crisis, hyperinflation, debt crisis, annual default. Does capitalism freedom reemerge, or do we double down on status stupidity? It really does appear to me that we double down on status stupidity. I just don't see where the energy, where the passion, or where the talent, or where the advocacy for the reemergence of capitalism comes from. It's just capitalism is dead in America. In terms of anybody advocating for it in the political realm, there just isn't anybody. Yeah, so all of those could happen, and I don't see who steps up and becomes our Millet. Right? I was really, really saddened, by the way, to see Millet be so favorable towards Trump. Millet is having really great success in Argentina, and he's nothing like Trump. He's so much better than Trump. All right, Harper Campbell. Thoughts on Mike Huckabee being the ambassador to Israel? He always struck me as a smart guy. He's smart, but super, super, super religious, evangelical, bad, bad, bad. I think bad for Israel long-term, good for Israel short-term. Tazy, do you think Biden secretly voted for Trump? He seems to have a pretty big smile on his face. Yeah, I don't think you can read anything into Biden's expression, given that he's pretty mindless. Bob says Millet is Trump light. I mean, that's such a stupid comment. Sorry. I mean, Millet's a giant as compared to Trump. Trump is a little wheezing child as compared to Millet. Millet actually has ideas. He actually knows stuff. Trump knows nothing except how to get elected. Clark says crypto and commercialization of space may do very well over the next 4 years. The worthless regulators will be afraid to hamper Elon Musk and digital wealth. Maybe. I'm skeptical about crypto because I don't think Trump and whoever he appoints a Treasury Secretary will ultimately be supportive of crypto because they'll view it as a threat to their own power. Yeah, commercialization of space. Yeah, Elon will have a free ride. Complete support to do what he wants, at least until Elon and Trump had a falling out, and I expect that to happen within 12 months. Within 12 months. Somebody should make a list of all my predictions here about RFK, about Elon, so we can check to see if. Not Your Average Algorithm says, does adversity introduce a man to himself? To some extent. Challenge, when you challenge yourself in adversity and you fail, or if you fail, if it's hard, then you really see what you're made of, and you test yourself, and you test your will, and you test your abilities, and that's partially a big part of self-knowledge. It's not the only way to self-knowledge, but it's certainly a way and one of the important ways to self-knowledge. Life that's too comfortable makes that harder. Mary Benz, to philosophy at work. She's not writing this to me, guys. She's not talking about me. She's talking about philosophy at work. I love you, no joke. So there goes all the hints and all the innuendos. Mary Benz has become direct. Michael, are you sure we're a center-right country? Obama won twice by significant margins, and he was a condescending academic leftist. Would Obama have beaten Trump? I don't know. I still think we're a center-right country. But what does that even mean? I think we're basically a statist. But we're not, on economics, we're center-right country, and Obama didn't change our economic destiny that much. And that's why he won a second term, is he didn't do that much. So it depends what we mean by center-right. On social issues, again, I think we're mostly a center-right country. Not right, but just a little bit off of center to the right. I don't know if Obama would have beaten Trump. I'm not sure anybody could have beaten Trump this round. And it depends, right? One of the reasons Trump won is because of inflation. If Obama had inflation, he would have lost. Not your average algorithm. Did Republicans not win any suburbs, cities, and suburbs where all the civilized, productive people live, dominating rural, nothing areas suggest Trump is awakening the barbarians? That is the reality. You can interpret it how you want, but that is the reality. He did not win the cities, and he did not win much of the suburbs. I mean, just look at the education gap. It's stunning. The education gap is just stunning. The less education you have, by a long shot, the more likely it is you vote for Trump. The more education you have, by a long shot, the more likely it is you voted for Kamala. Now, you could say that's education is so corrupting that makes sense from that perspective. But we're talking about engineers and scientists, and we're talking about there's a huge intelligence gap on average between Trump and non-Trump voters. Mayor Benz, how will RFK affect biotech investing? I'm trying to start my own biotech business. It depends on the biotech, but I think generally, tech. I think RFK believes that all our problems can be solved with organic food. He's not big on science. He's not big on gene therapy, on technology that is applies medication and applies therapy to people. And so I think he's repressive. And I don't think he'll survive. I'm not even sure he'll be confirmed. So I think there's a good chance he doesn't go up. But he's definitely going to be a negative force and going to be disruptive to the biotech business. Any healthcare business, all healthcare businesses, anybody involved in healthcare. Supikask, Democrats should not try to win back working class voters. They are unambitious and bitter, and they will only encourage Democrats to adopt more interventionist and redistributionist policies. Yeah, I agree. It's a question of, can one form a coalition big enough that supports self-reliance, that supports independence, that supports freedom? And I don't think one could do that in the Republican Party anymore. Maybe one can change if the Democrats get rid of the crazy left. Maybe one can change the Democratic Party. I don't know. Politics is not my thing at that level. James Taylor says, all the hate and ignorance that's online has to spill over to the real world eventually. It's a digital dark ages of perpetual ugliness, so beneath what human beings could be. Absolutely. It's really sad. It's really sad when you know what the potential of human beings is. Clark. People are saying the Israeli Maccabi fans were pulling down Palestinian flags hanging from their homes, and that's what started the violence. Is there any truth to this, or just another blood libel? It's a blood libel. The reality is that the pro-Palestinians were organizing the day before on earlier in the day on social media. They were calling people to come and attack Jews. It was clearly organized and had nothing to do with the behavior. It could be the ones that all started. Some of the Israelis were doing that, but this was started by them. It was initiated by them, and it was organized in advance. It was not spontaneous. These were not spontaneous attacks. Harper Campbell, where do you see North Korea 100 years from now? I don't know. It depends on where the United States is 100 years ago. It depends on where civilization is 100 years ago from now. I really don't know. Harper Campbell, what do people get out of trying to condemn the idea of free will? Well, they get a free pass, right? I mean, that's what Christians do, right? God has already decided whether you go to heaven or hell. That gives you a certain free pass on what you do in this life. It gives you instant forgiveness for your sins. And then the other people who do this are people who, I don't think they're trying to get anything out of it, but they're just rationalists. They just can't get their head around free will, so they give up on it. And they create stories on why it doesn't exist, because they're rationalists. They're divorced from reality, and they're divorced from their own experience. Eric, is Tulsi bad for Israel? Isn't she good buddies with Assad? Yeah, I think she's bad for Israel. Tulsi's definitely bad for Israel. She's bad for America. She's bad for freedom. She's a Putin-Assad supporter. That's not good for anybody. James Taylor, is lying to get out of jury duty immoral even though the government is forcing you to serve against your will? I think it is immoral. I think jury duty is something that is part of civilized life. It's part of, if you will, your responsibility as a citizen. I think you should do it, right? I don't think you should. I mean, you might be disqualified for a variety of reasons. As soon as I say I have a PhD, I kind of get kicked out. But I don't think you should lie in order to get out of it. I think it's part of being a citizen in this country, even if you think it wouldn't be forced on you by government in a free society. Well, we're not a completely free society. Yes, force is being used, but it's a legitimate function. It's something people should be doing. Subikaski, Getz and Kennedy in government, American kids are doomed. Yeah, Getz is God, and Kennedy, yeah. I'll have to do Getz another time. I can't believe I forgot him. It's like, God. Robert says, prioritizing loyalty over ability, that's certainly true, and over virtue, is a recipe for disaster, yes, in personal life, in the workplace, and in the government. But here we are. Yep, it's all of you who voted for Trump. You got loyalty over ability and virtue. Well, I mean, you can't expect virtue from Trump. ELL says, what is your favorite helicopter manufacturer? Don't have one. Don't have an opinion about helicopters. Eric, thoughts on Matt Gaetz? I think I gave them a few minutes ago. Swami, dishonest, creepy. Those are the things that come to mind. He brought down the Speaker of the House last term. Why? For what? Just to flex his muscles, because he could. MAGA, kind of involved in one way or the other in all these kind of horrible conspiracy theories and the whole MAGA movement. And he's the leader of this little MAGA group in the House of Representatives. Just a despicable human being from everything I can tell. I'm not even talking about the sleeping with 17-year-olds. And bragging about it and all of that. I won't mention that. There's, of course, an ethics hearing in the House of Representatives. He quickly resigned from the House, so the ethics hearing will go away because he's nominated for justice. I can't believe America is going to have a head of a Justice Department as creepy as Matt Gaetz is. It's just, yeah, it's hard to comprehend. Shazbad, have you seen Alex Epstein's debate versus RFK Jr. on Fossil Foods? Yeah, years ago, right? So Alex Epstein did a debate with RFK. I forgot to mention this. Years ago. And RFK was just clueless. And Alex really nailed it. But this is the guy. He's an environmentalist, leftist, authoritarian. Jennifer, are you going to eat Vegemite in Australia? It's some kind of yeast paste or something. I thought it was gross. I've eaten Vegemite. I like Vegemite. I think they have it in South Africa. I ate it on my visits to South Africa. Yeah, I actually like it. So, will I eat it in Australia? I don't know. I haven't. If somebody offers it to me, I will eat it. Rue Downs, I noticed that you're sighing a lot. I know that when talking about Trump and the state of politics, it's hard not to. Yeah, I mean, I sighed many, many times during his first term, 4 years of Trump, and I'm going to sigh even more during these next 4 years, unfortunately. Eyal says, talk about Trump and Putin again. Two, brothers in arms. Let's wait until there's something to talk about, but Trump, I think, admires Putin. I don't think Putin's afraid of Trump. I think Putin thinks he can manipulate Trump at will. It's going to be really, really interesting to see in the next few weeks, next few months, what happens with the Ukraine, quote, negotiations. Yeah, I mean, I think Trump is a great admirer of Putin and would like to be like him. Strong, powerful, respected, admired. Feared, maybe more than anything else. Colleen, quote, how sad it must be believing that scientists, scholars, historians, economists, and journalists have devoted their entire lives to deceiving you, while a reality TV star with decades of fraud and exhaustively documented lying is your only beacon of truth and honesty. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yes, that's a beautiful statement. How sad it must be believing that scientists, scholars, historians, economists, and journalists have devoted their lives to deceiving you, while a reality TV star with decades of fraud and exhaustively documented lying is your beacon of truth and honesty. I don't always agree with Neil deGrasse Tyson, but that is a great quote by him. He's absolutely right. Robert says, Donald Trump has the Midas touch. Everything he touches turns into muffler. Even his best appointments' credibility is tainted by his words. Yes, and that's the problem. Even his support for Israel, which might be strong, is tainted by his lack of support for Ukraine, but more importantly, by just his overall irrationality. Andrew, Hannity turned into a European elitist in arguing that he was shocked learning that Europe won't accept some American foods because of chemicals. Those were the days. Now it's completely okay not to accept food because of the chemicals and to become more European because Trump said so. Trump said it's okay to ban chemicals, so it must be okay. Make America healthy again. Even if we have to cram that health down their throat, we are going to do it. We're going to coerce them into health. There's a trade-off we should all embrace. Philosophy at Work says, and again, he's not writing this to me, he's writing this to Maribens. I love you too. It's amazing. And then he says, and Yaron Brook, you're awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. Because I was feeling kind of left out of the I love you and I love you too kind of thing. I mean, I was kind of feeling a little WCZN. Will you bet on your prediction on Polymarket? Which one? No, I mean, I don't bet on stuff. I'm happy to have somebody make a list of all my predictions. But if Polymarket had existed since I started making geopolitical predictions, I would have made a fortune. I would have made a fortune. Predictions about terrorism, my predictions about, I've been wrong on some stuff. I thought China would end differently. I've been wrong on nothing in the Middle East. I've been right on pretty much everything in the Middle East. So, but I'm pretty good at these things, at these kind of predictions. Not the pure political predictions, the more... Florida Nick, how much would I have to pay you to get you to watch a 3-minute wingsuit video, assuming that would be something you would want to watch? A wingsuit is one of these things where they jump off a cliff and have this. I'll watch that. I mean, I don't know, pay me $100, I'll watch it. Those are cool. Every time, the only thing that scares me is every time I watch it, my wife sees it, she goes, I want to do that. And it scares me because I don't want her to do it. But I get that it's cool. I just worry about somebody I love doing it. It's super scary. You wouldn't catch me anywhere near the cliff, the edge of the cliff where they have to jump off of. Never mind, jump off of it. All right, guys, thank you. Don't forget to check out Alex Epstein, alexepstein.substack.com. Don't forget to check out all the different stuff that the Ayn Rand Institute is doing these days at aynrand.org/start here. That podcast with Don and Nico sounds amazing. aynrand.org/start here. And I will see you all tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern time for Ask Me Anything show. And then during the week, we will have a show every single day, I promise. And maybe even Saturday. And then I fly to Europe, and I don't know when I'm going to do a show. I'll be traveling for 3 weeks on a crazy, insane, ridiculous schedule. And it's going to be very, very difficult to do shows. So let's try to get as much done, as much talked about, as many questions asked as possible during this coming week, so we can set ourselves up for a period where there are going to be fewer shows. To all the super chatters, thank you. And all the stickers, I know I didn't recognize all the sticker people. I really, really appreciate all the stickers, and particularly to Arthur, who came in with his first super chat at $100 and really got us over the target. I am going to eat dinner. One of the things that jet lag-ish, it's not exactly jet lag, as I said, flying, causes me is I get hungry. So I need to go eat. I don't think what I'm going to eat is organic. I don't think it's going to be organic. It'll be meat, but it won't. I doubt it's organic. All right. I don't know. Is pork organic? I think I'm eating pork and lamb. I'm eating lamb and pork. I'm eating meat for my appetizer and my entree. Does that count as carnivore? Or is the fact that there's some vegetables included there not count anymore? See you guys. Bye.